Hello everyone and welcome to this edition of Inside the Naval Postgraduate School on the Pentagon Channel. I'm your host Alan Richmond. Well, we're not in Monterey, our usual home base. Today we're in San Francisco on the Marina Green as part of the 30th anniversary of Fleet Week. It's also the 100th anniversary of naval aviation, and we have a full slate of activities to share with you on this show. So from all of us at NPS, welcome to Fleet Week. The San Francisco Fleet Week Association and its Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Response Committee were honored to welcome the men and women of the Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard to San Francisco, California for Fleet Week 2011 in October. In addition to expressing their appreciation for their service to our nation, Fleet Week attendees had the opportunity to learn about humanitarian and disaster response capabilities of the naval services as recently employed in the relief efforts in Haiti and Japan. The Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey was pleased to participate in the week-long series of activities, including capturing some of the many activities presented to the over 1 million visitors. Well, at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California, we're all about providing humanitarian support and disaster relief around the world with our hastily formed networks. And with us is Buddy Barretto, who's going to tell us a little bit more about that kind of work. You can see some of the equipment behind us. But Buddy, tell us about how hastily formed networks works.
All right, basically there's several components to the hastily formed network. The idea is that you're building a conversation space where various groups can get together and establish communication, establish a relationship where they can share resources and get together to help respond to the emergency at hand. We have another component of that system, which is basically networking. And we bring in power, communications, and data capabilities to a humanitarian relief effort so that we can aid with the communications and helping to reestablish the infrastructure that has been damaged or destroyed by the event.
Now, of course, we had Japan as one of the most recent disasters, but I know we had our team at the tsunami, and essentially you go in there, and if you can't communicate, you can't get medical aid, you can't get supplies. It really starts with getting that communication system up and running, doesn't it?
Yes, what's happened in most of those previous examples that you mentioned is that we've had a lot of resources pouring into airports, then the airports get congested, and all of these things that are vital to the people out in the field have no way of being distributed. So the Red Cross may be there, NPS may have a team there, military may have a team there, other NGOs, non-government organizations trying to get to these resources, and nobody knows how to get to them because there's no communications. So we come in with our system, and the first thing we do is we try and get our power system up. So by establishing power, now we can start to power devices. So some of the things that we do is we set up a wireless network. We set up a satellite link. We have 2 BGAN satellite links set up right now, which give us the ability to connect to the internet and have reach back to the world. Once we do that, we can set up our wireless network for people to connect laptops and cell phones to. And then we can start to spread that out with what we call a wireless mesh network, so we can extend the reach of that. And then if we have other agencies that we're trying to communicate with, we can set up a 802.16 network and distribute our cloud several miles away, 20, 25 miles away, whatever the terrain allows. And then we can set up another wireless cloud on that side and share that one wireless link. That's what was done in Katrina by Brian Steckler when he went down there with his team of NPS students and faculty. Alex Bordetsky, who's also here, sent his team down to the Comfort and set up a network down there for those folks. And then as recently as Haiti, we deployed the same system. So getting communications up and off the ground is key to getting the resources to the people that need them.
One of the great things seems to be the fact that we have so many thousands and thousands of people coming to the Marina Green here in San Francisco to look at all the displays put on by the military. How has it been for people coming by the NPS booth here and seeing the equipment and asking questions? They seem pretty fascinated with it.
They are very fascinated, and in fact I was talking to the general yesterday who's set up behind us here, and he and his wife and I were talking, and we were saying everybody's all excited until an airplane goes by, and then the conversation stops and we all look up for a couple of seconds, and then we come back to the conversation about what we're doing. But everybody's truly very interested and very happy to see that NPS is got such an important role as a humanitarian assistance and not just as an educational institution, but the research that we're doing is actually going out and integrating with all these other folks and helping in these critical times when people are hurt and the infrastructure's down.
Well, Buddy, thanks for your work and thanks for being part of Fleet Week up here and representing NPS so well. We appreciate it. The Senior Leaders Seminar was presented by the San Francisco Fleet Week Association and organized by the Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Response Committee. The programs were produced with the advice and assistance of the SLS planning team, which was comprised of representatives from the U.S. military organizations, along with a variety of federal, state of California, and San Francisco Bay Area local emergency management organizations. This provided a valuable opportunity for emergency responders, local governments, and the military to build key relationships in order to enhance our overall level of disaster preparedness. The Senior Leaders Seminar was hosted on the USS Bonhomme Richard over a 2-day period at the beginning of Fleet Week activities. The official welcome was given by Major General Mike Myatt, USMC retired, who is also chairman of Fleet Week activities this year.
I do want to tell you that this is an important event to me personally because in my previous life I was commanding the 1st Marine Division in April of 1992. We had been to the Gulf War, we liberated Kuwait City, we'd been in all these parades, we were fat, dumb, and happy down at Camp Pendleton. And on the 30th of April, 1992, the results of the Rodney King trial were announced. And as a result of the results of that trial, we had the largest riot in U.S. history. We had 300 people killed, 3,000 people were wounded. And we found ourselves 2 days later with the 1st Marine Division and the 7th Infantry Division in LA to quell the riots. And we discovered that all the individual cities had their own police and fire departments, but none of them had communications that they could talk to each other. So we had to provide the interoperable communications.
Additional comments were provided by former Secretary of State George Shultz, Mayor Ed Lee, Captain Jonathan Hardin, U.S. Navy Commanding Officer of the USS Bonhomme Richard, the Honorable Haley Barbour, Governor of Mississippi, Admiral Patrick Walsh, Commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, and former Speaker of the California State Assembly and former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown. A variety of topics were discussed at the Senior Leaders Seminar Roundtable session by leaders from various counties and governmental agencies.
I think we're each different. I would guess for the Bay Area, the disaster that we know that's happening, we just don't know when, is a major earthquake either on the west side of the bay or the east side of the bay, more likely on the east side of the bay, the Hayward Fault, that we're expecting a major incident within 30 years.
I guess one thing we learned in the San Bruno incident in particular, because we were very fortunate, we had many agencies coming to our aid and rescue. The problem was oftentimes some of the informational tools or the radio connectivity, we weren't always synced up. And I think what we need to be sure of, and that's why we're talking about this, is that we can actually talk to one another.
Edwin Lee is the 43rd mayor of the city and county of San Francisco. The former city administrator, Lee was appointed unanimously as successor mayor by the Board of Supervisors on January 11, 2011, to fill the remaining year of former Mayor Gavin Newsom's term, who was sworn in as California's lieutenant governor on January 10, 2011. Lee is the first Asian American mayor in San Francisco history, and we had the opportunity to speak with him about this year's Fleet Week celebration. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for taking time to spend with us here on the Pentagon Channel, and thank you so much for hosting Fleet Week in one of the most beautiful cities in the entire world.
Well, it's been my pleasure.
Talk about the military and the support that we provide around the world to protect our country. But disaster and humanitarian relief are really the theme of this 30th anniversary, and it was actually started by Senator Feinstein, the former mayor.
Yes, it was. Back in 1984, Senator Feinstein then had christened the resurgence of our Fleet Week and wanted, of course, have our city united in celebrating and honoring our military and the Navy and the Marines and our Coast Guard. And we've done that. We've kept that tradition up well. But more importantly, too, we're beginning to deepen our understanding of the role of our military beyond just the celebration part. And we certainly want to honor the men and women who are dedicated in their proud service to our country. But it's ongoing as well. And in the Bay Area, and particularly for San Francisco, we are always trying to get more ready and prepared for our earthquake and for our natural disasters. And we know it's a matter of when it will happen, not if. And in doing so, our Fleet Week has taken on an even more important role, and that is emphasizing the logistical support and the movement of personnel and supplies. The logistics expertise of our military is being emphasized in relation to all of our city departments and our emergency coordinators.
Well, under your jurisdiction and your leadership, I mean, this is a huge effort to try and unite and put this communication effort together, as you suggest, with all the first responders. And it's not an easy task. I mean, this is ongoing for you and your administration, correct?
It is, but it's the business, and it should be the business of our city to always be prepared for the utmost disaster that might happen. We obviously have learned through 9/11, we've learned through New Orleans, and we learned through the horrible hurricanes and storms on the East Coast and in the Midwest. And if we're not learning from those things to get better prepared, then our city is lost in its own leadership. And so I want to make sure that we are better prepared. Working with our military in the way we've done for this Fleet Week is not just important, it's also been very fun. The military have had a chance to visit our hospitals and see the kids there and give them some both hope and happiness while they're experiencing their recoveries. Just that kind of touch and presence, as well as the additional training that we're doing, I think it's fabulous. And the celebration just means that much more in the whole Bay Area. We have over 1 million people that are coming to the Bay Area this whole weekend, enjoying the Blue Angels, enjoying the parade of ships that we just saw, but also seeing all of the equipment that can be deployed and understanding that we work as a whole country together. And so while San Francisco is famous for its conventions and its visitors, we also know that in time of need, we work not only as a city coming together, we work as a nation coming together, and we're very, very satisfied with the leadership that we've had from our military forces and our Coast Guard for doing this every day.
Well, you know, we're from the Naval Postgraduate School, of course, down in Monterey, and we have our Hastily formed network team up here that we deploy around the world for disasters to set up communication systems. And we're working a lot with the Marine Corps and your city officials. We're working on nuclear detection for port security. And that's another big issue, that San Francisco, being one of the major ports on the West Coast, there are security risks that we need to be concerned about all over the world, but here in San Francisco.
Absolutely. We are a major port, and the Bay Area, of course, many of the ships come through Golden Gate Bridge and underneath it. And we're also getting ready. In fact, a lot of these preparation sessions are aimed towards one of the largest events that we'll host in the next decade, and that's the America's Cup, 34th America's Cup, and that's coming in 2013. We're already practicing and sharing information with our Coast Guard. This week we had some highlights about how the race will conduct itself, and it allows all of our naval forces to understand how they could be of assistance. And we're bringing in over 500,000 people every single day during those races that will occur in 2013. So practicing up to then, getting better prepared, sharing good information with our Coast Guard and our naval operations and our Marines to be certain that anything could happen while we conduct that fantastic race. And we just want to make sure we are so successful in it. We want it back here, and the way we do it is we get really prepared for it, and we're doing that with the information that we're sharing today on our Fleet Week.
Thank you for the great job you're doing in San Francisco, and thanks for having us up here for Fleet Week.
Appreciate it very much. You're welcome, and let's have a lot of fun and know that we're doing a great job together.
Well, stay with us. There's more to come here on the Pentagon Channel as we take a look over my shoulder at what's known as The Rock, Alcatraz Island, a place you really don't want to visit, unless, of course, you're just a tourist. More to come on the Pentagon Channel. Stay with us. When Admiral Chester Nimitz ordered the formation of a flight demonstration team by the end of World War II, no one really knew if the attempt to uphold civilian interest in naval aeronautics would stick. But nearly 65 years later, after the inception of the Blue Angel Squadron, the Blue and Gold Navy Fleet remains the heavyweight attraction at this year's Fleet Week, San Francisco's premier air show and display of military might. Each F-18 can be made ready for combat in about 72 hours. The squadron includes 12 jets, with maximum speed just under Mach 2, or about 1,400 miles an hour. Maximum rate of climb, 30,000 feet per minute. It's definitely an A ride. After a 2-year hiatus from San Francisco Fleet Week, the red and white snowbirds are back from the frozen north. The arrival of the 431 Demonstration Squadron, Canada's leading aerobatic flying fleet, comes in the midst of Fleet Week's 30th anniversary. Despite the bomber squadron being disbanded in 1945, the 431 Squadron was reformed in the 1950s, flying the F-86 Sabre. Today, Canadian forces employ the iconic CT-114 Tudor jet, a plane they've used since 1971. Through the Korean, Vietnam, and Cold Wars, Canadians have stood shoulder to shoulder with their American brethren, and the Canadian forces are currently also deployed with us in Afghanistan and Libya. A veteran of more than 1,000 air shows, California native Sean Tucker entertained the massive San Francisco crowds with his bright red Oracle Challenger biplane. Holding his own with the Blue Angels, Tucker is a member of 3 aviation halls of fame and remains the only civilian performer ever allowed to fly close formation with the Blue and Gold Squadron. His bird of choice, Challenger 2, has an over 400 horsepower engine and weighs just over 1,200 pounds. Coming up, we'll take you to one of the world's premier yacht clubs, the St. Francis Yacht Club and the Parade of Ships, here on the Pentagon Channel. Tell us a little bit, Admiral, about your roles and responsibilities as commander of the U.S. fleet.
The area of responsibility for 3rd Fleet stretches from the North Pole to the South Pole, from the west coast of the United States to the international date line. It's roughly 50 million square miles of water space.
Wow.
Encompasses 60,000 sailors, 4 carrier strike groups, roughly 10 amphibious class ships, just under 400 aircraft, 65 cruiser destroyer class ships, and 20 plus submarines. So our responsibility, not only in homeland defense, but also training and certifying, preparing those forces that are going to deploy around the globe.
Well, the global force for good, I know you were talking about this in your comments, and you were speaking to the 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds that are really kind of the backbone of what we're doing in the Navy. So we're in capable hands, aren't we?
We are indeed. I tell people that to this day, I've been in the business almost 34 years, actually a little over now, and I still get goosebumps when I walk on the flight deck passageways of our ships, when I get to rub shoulders with these young 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. To do what they do, it's very heartwarming to be considered a shipmate of theirs.
Lots of activities going on. As you mentioned, we have a parade of ships coming up with 13 ships. I know you'll be participating in that ceremony. Talk a little bit about the role that the military is playing today in disaster and humanitarian relief around the world, because that's really the theme of this year's event, isn't it?
It is, and we had a senior leadership seminar the last 2 days with the civic community leaders, state and federal, along with the U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Marine Corps, and the U.S. Navy. It was hosted on one of our Navy ships, but nonetheless, we discussed how we as a team are going to respond to a disaster here in the United States, and then specifically for the last couple of days, how we would respond to a disaster here in the Bay Area. I remind people that U.S. Navy has a lot of experience in the humanitarian assistance disaster relief, but you almost have to put an F in front of it as for foreign humanitarian assistance disaster relief. Luckily for us, in the last decade, we've had few instances where we've had to respond here in the United States, but if you talk to the people here in this area, they will tell you it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when. And so the training, the tabletop exercise that we conducted just makes us all better prepared. And so when the team has to come together, it's not going to be the first time in the huddle that we look at each other. We're going to know who's who and what part each and every one of us brings.
The Great White Fleet was sent around the world by President Theodore Roosevelt from December 16, 1907 to February 22, 1909. It consisted of 16 battleships of the Atlantic Fleet and various smaller vessels. The 14-month-long voyage was a showcase of American sea power. 14,000 sailors manned the ships as they covered 43,000 miles, stopping at 20 ports on 6 continents. The legacy continues as 13 ships made way under the Golden Gate Bridge in this year's Fleet Week Parade of Ships, led by San Francisco fireboat Phoenix, clearing the way for the USS Carl Vinson and 10 additional ships, including several from Canada. A great vantage point was the St. Francis Yacht Club, recognized as one of the premier yacht clubs in the world. We had the opportunity to speak with their Commodore, Patrick Nolan, about the parade of ships, as well as the upcoming America's Cup with Principal Race Officer John Craig.
As the principal race officer for the America's Cup, we are working very closely with the city, but also the Coast Guard in trying to get organized to deal with these 72-foot winged sailboats that rip around at about 35, 40 knots, and San Francisco Bay with its beautiful amphitheater and Alcatraz and all of that in the background will make a great venue for us.
Patrick, thanks very much for taking time to meet with us here at your club, the St. Francis Yacht Club, one of my favorite clubs in the world.
Mine too, thank you.
It's a beautiful day, and what a great celebration for Fleet Week.
You couldn't ask for a better day, you couldn't ask for a better event. It's just phenomenal.
Now, this yacht club has done an awful lot to support Fleet Week.
Fleet Week is a very popular event for San Francisco and for the club, and the club is packed. All the members who can try to get here, but we're just so proud and honored to be able to have the review of the parade of ships here, to have the naval staff here, the officers from the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Canadian Navy. It's really a privilege to be able to host this event.
We also had the opportunity to speak with the wife of former Secretary of State George Shultz, Charlotte Shultz, who played a key role with Senator Dianne Feinstein, then mayor of San Francisco, in creating Fleet Week some 30 years ago. Well, thank you very much for taking time to talk with us here.
Thanks for asking me.
And listen, 30th anniversary of Fleet Week, and you go back to the beginning with Dianne Feinstein on this, don't you?
Well, I don't go back to the really beginning, because in 1908, Teddy Roosevelt sent the Great White Fleet. And unfortunately, it didn't come under the Golden Gate Bridge, because the Golden Gate Bridge wasn't here.
That's right.
But it did come into the bay. And so Dianne Feinstein, who was the mayor from 1980 to 89, brought it back. And in its glory, as it is today in sunshiny California, San Francisco.
And it was, you were relaying the story this morning about how it was a phone call when Senator Feinstein, then Mayor Feinstein, called you and said, Charlotte, you need to do something for me.
Well, she called, and it was on a Saturday. I'm up in the country drinking wine with all my family at a little lunch, and she's working. Dianne Feinstein is a worker, and she asked me to be chairman, and I said, well, what is Fleet Week? And she said, well, the Great White Fleet came in here in 1908, and I said, well, I wasn't there. She said, Charlotte, this is serious. And I said, well, tell me, what is Fleet Week? She said, well, the planes fly over, the ships come in, there are sailors, many hundreds of sailors, Marines, there's captains, there's generals, there's admirals. And I said, Dianne, so many men, so little time. And she said, Charlotte, this is serious. And I said, yeah, this is serious. So she's taken it serious in that she supported it through all these years, whether she was mayor or whether she was a private citizen and now a United States senator. It's close to her heart, and it's grown. She started it 30 years ago, this Fleet Week. And she's there with us in spirit. She couldn't be here today, but I know that her love for it is never ending.
Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for all that you've done for our country, and you and your husband both, and for taking time to talk with us here on the Pentagon Channel.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Sir, thanks very much for taking time to talk with us. Well, here we are in San Francisco at the 30th Annual Fleet Week on the Marina Green, and we're surrounded by Marines.
As it should be.
There you go.
Well, we're working very hard, Alan, to put Marines back into Fleet Week as well. Senator Feinstein has been encouraging, as well as Secretary Shultz, the honorary chairs of Fleet Week, to bring the fleet back to Fleet Week. And you can really see over the last couple of years the increased presence of the ships. This year is the largest, certainly in anybody's memory. And we at 1st Marine Expeditionary Force have been doing the same thing, getting our Marines up here. So it's a great opportunity to put on display for these particular Americans in the Bay Area what their Marine Corps is all about.
And you know, the theme, sir, as we were talking, is on humanitarian relief and disaster. And of course, our military forces have been well engaged in that throughout the history, but even more and more recently in Japan and the tsunamis and other things. So the Marines, as well as the Navy and the other forces, are more and more geared to go and support those efforts, aren't they?
It certainly appears that way, doesn't it? Yes. And this is kind of a unique twist. General Myatt, retired Major General Mike Myatt, who is running Fleet Week, wanted to do something more than just bring ships, sailors, and Marines back in and walk in the streets. And he, and this came with Secretary Schultz as well, saw this as an opportunity to really do some training.
We visited a little bit about the relationship about the Naval Postgraduate School, the Navy, and the Marine Corps, which goes back for many, many years, and you're very familiar with NPS.
I am not a graduate of NPS, but I sat on the Board of Advisors for 3 years when I commanded the Combat Center in 29 Palms, as well as Training and Education Command, and I got an opportunity to see where the school is, and I would offer that it is, if it's not the most transformational organization in DoD in the last decade, it's pretty darn close. There are things happening at NPS that are just amazing. And the school is tailored on meeting the needs of the customer. I mean, it's hard to find somebody that oriented on looking to where they can fill in. So they've got unmatched capabilities in areas, and they're doing everything they can to work with not just the Navy and the Marine Corps, but the Air Force now, Special Operations Forces, and they are really delivering. So I can't say enough for NPS either. It's a great place. I really do want to see us leverage it for all it has to offer.
Well, thank you very much, sir, and we hope you'll come for a visit soon, and Semper Fi.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Well, that's it for this edition of Inside the Naval Postgraduate School. I'm your host, Alan Richmond, from the 30th anniversary of Fleet Week in San Francisco.